Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Baal Shem of Kolel in the holy city of Tzfas, Israel, broadcasting today from Ascent, one of the great locations of the Rebbe in Eretz Israel. So today we're going to talk about Pesach Sheini, and this is from iChassid. iChassid is iChassid.com. Was done by Rabbi Levi Stolik, and they collected everything that the Rebbe said in the last 4 years. It's a very, very beautiful teaching, and very practical. So it goes on the Yom Tovim, Siddush Yom Tov, everything that Rebbe said. The first thing is that Pesach Sheini, of course, for those that don't know, is that Hashem created a holiday, a new holiday, which is interesting because I think from what I know is there are two halachas, two Jewish laws that came as complaints. The first Jewish law was the daughters of Tzlachot. They complained, why should their father not have a plot, because their father had died, and they wanted their father's name to have a plot to be remembered in Israel. And just because they were daughters, they complained to Moshe Rabbeinu that their father his name shouldn't be blotted out. And so they gave them all plots of land on the condition that they would marry within the tribe, so that land would stay within the tribe. That's one mitzvah that we find came as a complaint, a holy complaint, or a complaint coming from a good place. And then we find there's another mitzvah that came from a complaint, which is that Jews that couldn't offer the sacrifice, they said, Lama Nigara, why should we be left out? And Hashem gave them a mitzvah, which is a very profound mitzvah, that there's kind of a new Pesach, a second Pesach, Pesach Sheini. So it shows that complaining for holy reasons is very important to Hashem. Hashem is not looking. My father told me there was a story, I think it was Yonis and Eibshetz. He was friendly with the priest, and priests were actually very powerful people in the olden days. And he said, what's the difference between our religion, your religion? So he said, come, the Jews didn't exactly know what the priest looked like, and he had a nice big beard. He said, come to shul next week and I'll show you the difference. He comes to shul, and the Yonis gets up and he says, guys, we're reading a different haftarah. Never mind the Torah, which is different haftarah. Everyone starts shouting, what are you talking about? I can't do a different haftarah. And you can't get the rabbi, the bigger rabbi of Janus Ebshit, he's like, he can't change the religion, not even that iota. She says, that's the difference. So then he said, you can tell the people anything, they'll listen to you. Here, you can't tell them anything because the religion is set. We're just the lawyer saying what the law is. But it does show us that a person can make a mistake and think that things are set. Things are very the way it's meant to be. When you get a little bit deeper, you say, no, everything that Hashem made, even the mistakes that Hashem makes us do, because subconsciously everything comes from Hashem, is also only there for tshuva. Everything in life is there for tshuva. So therefore, the truth of the matter is, life is not about problems. Life is about solutions. The goal of life is, what can we do to make things better? And a person, and you really look at the big tzaddikim, from the Rebbe to Moshe Rabbeinu to Avraham Avinu, they were complainers, right? They had issues with Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu was upset with Hashem. The Rebbe had issues with Hashem. Avraham Avinu, had arguments with Hashem. In other words, they were engaged very much within reality, and they knew that they're here to fix reality. They on a simple level, they were just good people. And good people have a lot of complaints against Hashem because we look at the world, it doesn't make sense. In fact, a person that doesn't have issues with God, they're living in a bubble because there are a lot of issues in this world. And so a person should have issues with God. I think the Baal Shem Tov says that it's okay to argue with God. It's just not okay to deny him, right? If a child comes home, they see their father doing something in their mind is wrong, they should say something. So the idea of talking to God, the idea of complaining to God is very, very important concept, because complaint shows, obviously you have to complain respectfully, but at the same time, a complaint shows that, we both believe in justice, we believe in what's right, and like the Rebbe was very into, I must say, complaining that Mashiach isn't here and it's not fair. So a person really has to have a tremendous sense of engagement in reality, and this is a very important thing. Okay, so we're coming up to Pesach Sheini, and the first teaching, you want to call it the first halacha here that the Rebbe teaches us, is to let Jews know that they can fix their past. The Rebbe says that we should know, and it's very interesting, I didn't really know this until I I read this the other day. Pesach Sheini, we're granted a special power. Every single Yom Tov, we have a power. Pesach, we have the power of freedom, right? Rosh Hashanah, Tshuva, all these different things. Pesach Sheini, we have special power to correct anything of the past, because that's what Pesach Sheini did. In fact, even the Jews who deliberately didn't come to the Beis HaMikdash, it wasn't even just by accident. Even if they made a deliberate sin on Pesach Sheini, they can fix it up. So everything in all years of divine service, even in the shortcomings, if there are serious deficiencies that have brought the person to very low spiritual standing, you can fix it up. The next thing is a day of personal reckoning. 1991, that I've instructed, and now this is very interesting, that each of us should hold a personal accounting of all that needs correcting from the past year, meaning from the last Pesach Sheini, so it's going to be Pesach Sheini, be this Friday, till Erev Pesach Sheini. So we have a whole year to look at and say, what can I correct from this year? Because, of course, if this day gives us great opportunity for transformation, it's what we need to do. We should seek to make these corrections as soon as possible. Now, special powers are granted on Pesach Sheini, not only to fix the immediate past, meaning the most recent days, weeks, months, or even the past year, but even the distant past, up until the age of Bar Mitzvah. So we have a power to go all the way back to Bar Mitzvah. Person can go in their mind all the way back, think about what they did wrong, and fix it up. In fact, we should even correct wrongdoings that preceded the Bar Mitzvah, as the Rebbe states in the Shulchan Aruch. Indeed, we find that many sages made an effort to correct wrongdoings that had taken place while they did not yet have sufficient understanding to realize what they were doing, including when they were tiny babies from the moment they entered into this world. So people can rectify the whole past, and even up to that time, focus on the future. In addition to contemplating actual shortcomings of the past, we should also meditate on the fact that even a perfect divine service of the past can be brought to an even greater level of Shalom Aleichem. Very special location, a sense. This is, according to the director, the largest center of informal education in Eretz Yisrael. It's amazing. There's 70,000 souls that come through here a year.
Wow.
The army sends here, I don't know how many, but I'm going to estimate at least 10,000 soldiers a year. Many officers come here to learn a little bit about Yiddishkeit. This is really a great, one of the Rebbe has millions of great institutions, but this is one of the Rebbe's greatest institutions. The Rebbe himself named this institution. He told them they had a set, not Chabad, so it has a very universal appeal. And I'm honored to work here as well, so it's very, very special. And normally this class is done by Rabbi Mo, but he's out of town. So that's why I'll be taking this class, this time slot, for a couple of weeks until he comes back. And we get to sit in the sun. And hopefully Mashiach will be here, and then maybe we get to continue. Okay. In addition to contemplating actual shortcomings of the past, we should also meditate on the fact that even a perfect divine service of the past can be brought to an even greater level. So, first of all, the Rebbe is saying, Pesach Sheini is coming up, second Passover. That's the day that we are able to rectify all the past. The Rebbe is saying, not only should you look at the past, but you should look at the future, because you can have a tremendous effect on your future on Pesach Sheini as well. And so we can always, this was one of the great points of the Rebbe, is that Hashem, is very, very hard for us to understand this. I mentioned this before. I have a friend, very bright guy, Yossi Malinsky. He says, when we speak about infinity, just imagine you're on a spaceship, and your spaceship is going to go for infinite time. So, and then I say to you, okay, by the way, the universe expands infinitely. That means you will be going infinitely, even if you go the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, forever, you'll never reach the end of the universe, because at the end of the universe, it's faster than the speed of light in its expansion. Actually, I think it gets 10 times as fast. I think it it maximizes the rate of expansion. So you can never, but in your head, you'll never be able to picture that. Why? Because you can never picture something that will go on for infinity, right? Even I say there are infinite numbers can go on forever. So you picture 1 billion, 1 trillion, forever. Can't even picture forever. And so the thing is, we can always go higher than ourselves forever. Now, one of the simple ways that we understand infinity in this world is the idea of the heartbeat. Because the heartbeat is what keeps us alive, is that infinite pulse, on, off, on, off, on. And from the beginning of time, many things have been living, and every single thing that's living has been going in and out, on, off, on, off, on, off. Not only that, the physical world is going on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. So we see that there's a higher, the only way you can understand infinity in the finite is there's a higher force than infinity and the finite are the same level to it. And it is the one that's like this little kid going on, off, on, off, on. It's the one that has this infinite energy to make everything keep on going forever and ever. So we could even contemplate how not only rectifying the past, but how I could do better, done better. This is the beautiful thing that a Jew has to, very important to understand this concept of infinity. Why? Because if a person, many of us have been sort of, like using the word trauma, it's an overused word, but many of us have been maybe shamed somewhere. Oh, you weren't good enough, or like you didn't do good. And an exercise, I think I might have mentioned it in this class, and a very powerful exercise that I came up with is, think about your greatest shame. Just think about it for a second. Because when you think about it, what was it? Then as you put it into words, you can deal with it. Because often it becomes an emotion. You can't rectify an emotion. But once something is in words, what's a great psychologist say, that people just have to say it or even write it down. Because once you put it into words, then it comes to the prefrontal lobe. And you can actually take x-rays where people are speaking, let's say they go through a traumatic event, and when they say it, you could see it travel from the amygdala nuclei region to the prefrontal lobe. And once the prefrontal lobe, it gets dealt with almost automatically because it just hasn't been filed. It's been filed in the brain basically as danger. So a person encountered danger and they still remain in danger mode. But once they think about it and they're out of the danger, they're not reacting to this thing in an instinctual, fear-based mode, or even an addictive mode. Maybe you could do the other thing. I shouldn't make any exercise that I haven't tried out first, but it might work even in the other way, that a person's addicted, but the addiction is also just an emotion. What if we asked ourselves, I'm just gonna, don't ask, well, I have to try it out first, but let me try it out first. Right. So a person can, like, then change, because the problem of an addiction, as Rebbe says, you have to associate, let's say a person has a lust or something, or maybe they like a drug or something. There's a psychologist that said you don't really need, his technique was that he would like kind of work, I don't know if you call it the subconscious mind. Like, for example, this guy told me about this. The guy would come to him with a pipe. So this was his psychology. He would say, a friend of mine once smoked a pipe, but it really bothered him. He always has to mess around with the tobacco. I mean, it like hurt his lungs. Like within a week or two, the guy would stop smoking because he would create this negative association. A person has a positive association. So that's what it says in Chassidus. Let's say a person has the lust. So they could say, imagine like an excrement, or let's say they have a drug that, imagine with diarrhea or something, just create it, oh, yuck. And then in that way that because it's just an emotion, but then they've changed the emotion from love to disgust. They've gone away from that emotion. So it's the ways that we can deal with trauma. It just has to come into the brain, and then we can process it. Because in any event, trauma we don't want. Pain we don't want. The brain really wants to get rid of pain. That's not a problem. But pleasure we do want. So pleasure, you have to associate it with something negative, something that you don't want. And if you create that association, you can get rid of it. Anyway, so that's very important. This also includes, very interesting what the Rebbe says here, we should contemplate our personal spiritual standing as well as our behavior towards others, beginning with the way we guide our very own family. Okay, so all of us are fathers or husbands. We have people that we guide, whether we like it or not. I remember this, I think it might have been Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, that Rebbe told him that he has to be a role model to other students. He said, Rebbe, I don't see myself as a role model. It was somebody else. But Rebbe said, every Jew, whether they like it or not, is a role model. So we don't have a choice to be a role model in this world. We are a role model. Other people are copying our behavior. The way people are is people copy people's behavior. So particularly if in a kind of authority position or a leadership position like a father or a husband, you are being copied. And so we have to ask ourselves, am I a good Am I a good original? Should I be copied? And how can I improve myself that it's okay that people are copying? This also includes our relationship with our older children. It's very interesting what the Rebbe says. It probably applies to you somewhat. Who have long completed their period of education as defined by the Torah, i.e. until the age of 24. And even if they have their own children by now, whether you like it or not, you're still a role model. They're still looking up to you. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of a role model? How can I improve myself? Of course, this was the Rebbe's whole way in life, the way of growth. And this thought that I had before, it slipped my mind, but just came back. But the idea is that once we understand that there is no such thing as perfect, right? Because if all of us are growing, right, like one tree can't say to the other tree, I'm a perfect tree. Now, if you're like me, you're perfect. If not, no, you're growing and I'm growing. Now, I can help someone in growth. So it's very important to realize that sometimes we've seen people and they look perfect, but really it's coming from a place of fear, and then we're ashamed, all this kind of stuff. No, everybody's just on a growth trajectory. Even an Rebbe's growing, even the Eibishter, somehow every day is like, Mechadash Chadushim, coming up with new insights in the Torah. So the Eibishter come up with, be renewed in a way, whatever that means. Everything's being renewed. So we don't have to be, there is no such thing as perfect. I have a friend, a very bright guy, he said that perfect is the enemy of good, right? Because perfect already says something else is bad. But good is like we're striving towards it. That's what you see in the positive leadership of the Rebbe or anybody that's positive. They're trying to raise people, but they're not saying, oh, this, like anytime you have a group that says, okay, everything that's not like this is bad. The whole philosophy is wrong. Right? We're finding this in the all radical groups. And this is the holiness, everything else is evil. No, everybody has to grow. You're not perfect, I'm not perfect. We have to help each other grow. In addition to our own, in addition to our own soul searching, we should educate our children to make a personal self-reckoning as well. So the Rebbe is just speaking here about that we all have to make a cheshbon and nefesh, but you also have to tell your children, guys, this is the time to make a cheshbon and nefesh. It's relatively easy to explain to a child how with a little more effort he or she could have done many things in an even better way, such that the child will be inspired to correct and improve himself. So the Rebbe once I remember seeing a letter from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, there's nothing that you can't explain to a child. There's nothing, the deepest secrets of the Torah, everything is got to the top, whatever. Because, it's maybe if a person knows how to communicate, really knows the concept well, they say the difference between a smart person and a genius is a genius can tell anybody what he's thinking. And so, smart person lived in that realm, he understands, but it's hard for him to explain it. But if you really grasp what you're saying, you can bring it down even to a child. Children with spiritual goals. Even regarding children whose service of God was appropriate, nevertheless, we should still inspire them to cry out in the words of the verse, why should we lose out from performing at an even higher level? Okay, so this is very holy. This bringing children to the place of that they want even more and even higher. And of course, the children of today, that Rebbe says, you want to see Mashiach, look at the children today. They're very, very high soul. And we just have to appreciate how great they are and literally help them reach their greatness. There's a big war for the souls of children of today. Aim for more effective influence. The need for soul searching and resolving to enhance one's performance is of particular relevance to those in positions of influence, such as teachers, mashpiyim, mentors, and abundant. They should seek ways of making their influence of previous years even more effective than it already was. So if a person is a rabbi or mashpiyah, they have leadership roles, then we have to really look at ourselves. I have to just think about, we have to really do some soul searching, because you have to think, how can I be more effective in the role that I am playing? Continue past achievements. They should also endeavor to influence their former students in context of previous years by sending them a letter, phoning them, or other means of contact. Wow. They should even reach out to those who have now grown up and already accepted positions as teachers and mentors. Okay, so that's very, very powerful. The Rebbe is kind of putting leadership role and responsibility. Certainly, I'm nobody, but obviously I've been around the block. I've had a lot of people that I've had influence on. The Rebbe is saying that you have to reach out to all those people. You can't just like, okay, whatever, I was the rabbi, have a nice day, I'm in a new city. You have to maintain connection. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a second in a minute just there's somebody that's helping me with my website. I just want to show her this thing because it's a very important thing that I have to be focused on. This connection between a teacher and his or her former student should be as enthusiastic as it was in the past when they had a formal student-teacher relationship. In other words, did ever say you can't abandon people, even if you're not their teacher anymore? You still have to have a loving relationship with them, and you have to always be inspiring people. However, the teacher should take into account that both teacher and student will have advanced intellectually since then, and endeavor using more advanced methods to expand his or her knowledge accordingly. 1 second, please. Say, for example, the teacher studied the laws of Kasha, Shabbos, and Yom Tov, candlelighting, or the laws of family purity with her students. Later, when the teacher acquires further knowledge in these fields, a greater awareness of the importance of these laws, she should and is obligated to inform her students of this additional information, even if they are by now teaching their own class of brimming with students. She should now teach them the extent of the spiritual or physical goodness of observing these laws and how crucial such observance truly is. I.e. that it connects the Jew with Shem, the source of blessing. Okay, so basically what the Rebbe is saying is that if you've advanced as a teacher, you have a responsibility to bring your advancements to your students. Okay, excuse me for a second. I just want to share this message to somebody because I think it's important. Okay, maybe I'll share it a little later. Fine. Past and future Avos Yisrael. A key focus of our soul reckoning on Pesach Sheini should be the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, loving one's fellow Jew. As above, we should contemplate our past shortcomings in this area, as well as formulating ways in which to increase our Avos Yisrael in practical day-to-day life. So it's very, very interesting how much the Rebbe is saying. Remember, it's just the last 4 years. So we're finding a tremendous amount on Pesach Sheini. It's an extraordinary amount that the Rebbe is giving us. Now he's telling us that we have to look at our Avos Yisrael, how can I increase my Avos Yisrael. Pesach Sheini gatherings, ideally we should begin rousing ourselves to fulfillment of Pesach Sheini's message and directive with a well-intended and joyful public gathering for bringing such a setting permits each person to give support to his fellow amid a spirit of Avos Yisrael. So this is a very, very important thing to do. So a Farbrengen is a great way to create this Pesach Sheini message. Inspirational Farbrengen. In the auspicious days between or in proximity to Pesach Sheini and Lag BaOmer, we should hold a special Farbrengen in every location. So these are very, very special days. Between Pesach Sheini and Lag BaOmer, we have to make a special Farbrengen. In the joyful atmosphere of these Farbrengens, we should seek to inspire others to correct and improve all areas of their divine service. So again, this is the intention of the Farbrengen, which is the Pesach Sheini, which is correcting and improving. Joyful repair of the past. However, we should ensure that even discussions on ways to fix the past are not conducted in a negative or depressing manner, God forbid, but rather in the spirit of joy. Let me see if it ever has anything to say on that. Okay, no Tachnon. We do not recite Tachnon on Pesach Sheini, although Tachnon is recited during Mincha of the previous day. Okay, that's interesting. We should make a point of eating matzah during the daytime meal of Pesach Sheini. Somebody told me that I don't know if it's true, that in Sfas there's a minute to have wine as well on Pesach Sheini. I don't know. That was custom the majority of years was to also eat matzah on the night of Iyar Pesach, Mitzvah Pesach Sheini. So that's interesting. I didn't know that. Rabbi Groner says that. Okay, so that's all about Pesach Sheini.